Hey, what's up, guys? Paco here, and welcome back to a new episode of Trading with Paco, the series that teaches you what the stock market is, how it works, and methods that can help you make profit. This episode, though, will be themed on history because I have a video that I think is very interesting. This is an event that strongly ties in with this series and that we hear often on the news. This is, of course, the 2007 global financial crisis. We hear about this a lot, but what actually happened, and why was this event so devastating that to this day, 13 years later, we are still being affected by it? Well, it all started in the year 2000 when the economy was actually going well and something called the housing bubble was about to happen. But I will go into that further along in this video. Before we get started, a premise. I want to talk about what a mortgage is. Basically, when an individual or someone just wants to buy a house but they don't have the money, they go to a bank and ask for a mortgage. Basically, let's say, for example, myself, I go to a bank and ask for a mortgage. This bank gives me the money I need to buy my house, and in exchange, they get a piece of paper which says that Paco every year needs to pay a certain amount of money, and maybe for 20 years in order to pay this mortgage back. This is just a premise because it will be very important in this video. So basically, in the beginning of the millennium, the banks were giving out mortgages to people that had little to no guarantees. Generally, in history, mortgages were really hard to get because you needed to have guarantees in order that if for any reason you cannot pay the mortgage, the bank actually has something to take that would actually grant them the money back. This could be a house of one of your relatives, or really anything that the bank can take from you. At this moment, though, they were actually giving mortgages to people that didn't have these guarantees, which was maybe strange, but this was working very well because the requests on houses actually increased due to these mortgages, and the sales and prices skyrocketed. So people were actually buying in the United States. People were buying houses that before they couldn't afford because their job didn't give them enough money to actually pay those houses. But thanks to these subprime mortgages, they actually were able to afford them. They're called subprime because a mortgage, the bank doesn't have to keep it. It can sell it to a third party, which is the one that is actually going to start to take the money from you. For the person, for myself, it doesn't make the difference. I always have to pay, but maybe it's you don't have to pay to the initial bank, you have to pay to someone else. This created a cycle where more and more people started to take mortgages because it was a very good moment. They gave actually mortgages to people who didn't have many guarantees. And this, the prices of houses always increased. They were always selling, demand skyrocketed. So it was actually very good for the economy. And banks worldwide started to buy these subprime mortgages because they seemed very, very profitable. So as I said, the banks who actually originally created these mortgages started to sell it to other banks worldwide. And this went on for a few years. However, just like all the bubbles, it is destined to break. Because eventually some people bought a house that they could not afford. Their job didn't pay enough for them to pay back this mortgage. So what happened? The bank took the house. And originally, this seemed risk-proof because the house was very expensive. As I said, the prices skyrocketed. So the bank was actually happy. They took the house and sold it again. And maybe they even made more profit. However, this was destined to change because as time went on, as I said, more and more people started to give back these houses that they couldn't afford. So the banks had so many houses and there wasn't a lot of requests. So the demand was dropping, the supply was rising, and this made the prices of houses drop drastically in a relatively short period of time. So as I said, the cycle broke and the banks worldwide, everywhere around the world, started to have many houses which were actually worthless because there were so many of them being sold at the same time that the supply was an all-time high. Demand was on an all-time low, and so the prices were very, very low. This, of course, meant that these subprime loans will have no value anymore because more and more people started to give them back because they, of course, couldn't afford them. This, of course, as I said initially, is very important to notice because previously banks wanted many guarantees, but no, they didn't. This made the people, average people, go buy houses that they couldn't afford. And so when they couldn't afford them, they stopped paying, and the banks took the house. So now banks had worthless subprime mortgages and houses that didn't have a value anymore. So this so that banks that bought many of these subprime loans, like the Lehman Brothers, which was an institution, a very famous bank, actually collapsed, and the world entered in a global crisis. People started panic selling, the market went crazy, the stock market crashed, and so I said we entered into a global crisis. This was in the United States. The houses were in the United States, but this affected everyone around the world, even here in Italy, because as I said, these subprime mortgages were actually being sold worldwide, and they actually seemed very profitable. However, as I said, they weren't. So many banks started to fail. Around the world, of course, many governments tried to prevent these banks from failing because they knew that we could enter a crisis which would be very hard. This could mean millions of jobs lost because of this financial crisis. This was limited. Some governments did a good job. Even the United States tried to prevent more banks to fail like the Lehman Brothers did. However, it was very difficult to prevent something that had already happened. So we entered in that financial crisis that to this day in 2020, well, now it's a very bad situation due to COVID-19. However, we were still trying to, get back from this terrible event. And now, in the last few years, it seemed as if the economy started to grow again. However, now we have a new financial crisis due to COVID-19, which is very serious too. However, I believe that it's important to understand what happened in history because many say the risks of trading, but very often it's not the traders that do the difference, but it's actually a lot bigger than us. This is a very important historical event, and I thought it was very important to actually make a video on it before actually start to get more into detail on trading. So I hope that you guys enjoyed and I hope that you guys learned from it. Let me know in the comment section below if you enjoy this type of format, more historical, or if you would actually prefer for me to go more into the practical aspect. Because every once in a while, I believe that going through some history is very nice. I'm personally very passionate about history, so I enjoy making this type of videos. However, drop a like if you enjoyed the video. As I said, give me any type of feedback that you think is important in the comment section below. I am a brand new YouTube channel, so I am learning too. So drop feedback in the comment section, subscribe, and turn on the notification because every Sunday I will be releasing new videos. Thanks for watching. See you next time.